Hello, I am Eric B. De La Rosa of BSed English 2A, and as a student immersed in study of language and education, I am constantly exploring how the words we choose and the way we speak shape our social reality. One of the most critical areas in linguistics is the study of stereotypes in English language use. These are the deeply ingrained mental shortcuts and biases that lead us to judge a person's intelligence, background, or character based solely on their accent, dialect, or vocabulary. Understanding these stereotypes is essential for breaking down communication barriers and fostering a more inclusive environment in both our classrooms and our communities. Today, together with my co-discussants, we will give a comprehensive knowledge about the of following topics that we will be discussing today. So keep on watching. Stereotypes in English language manifest in how we speak, the words we choose, and the assumption we make about others based on their linguistic patterns. These stereotypes can influence social perception, professional opportunities, and cultural identity. But before we dive into it, we must first know what stereotypes really is. At its simplest, a stereotype is a mental shortcut. It is a fixed, overgeneralized belief about a particular group of people. When we stereotype, we assume that everyone in a group is the same, regardless of their actual personality or abilities. It is like putting a label on a group of people instead of looking at people as individuals. One of the common stereotypes happens usually in academics, and I'll give you an example. The belief that all students who wear glasses are extremely smart and love to study. This is a stereotype. Why? Because it links a physical trait, which is the eyesight or the glasses, to a personality trait or the intelligence. In reality, many people wear glasses for medical reasons, and their hobbies or traits have nothing to do with their eyewear. Secondly, almost every day, the gender stereotypes can be seen publicly. For example, the belief that men are naturally good at fixing things and women are naturally better at cooking. This is a stereotype. Why? Because this assumes that skills are based on gender rather than practice or interest. Many men are excellent chefs, and many women are professional engineers or mechanics. The stereotype ignores individual talent and limits what people feel that what they should be doing. And lastly, mostly in the regional stereotypes, which the belief that people from the province are shy and simple-minded compared to the people from the city. This is a common stereotype here in the Philippines because it assumes that a person's geographic background determines their confidence or intelligence. It fails to recognize that someone from a rural area can be just as ambitious, tech savvy, and outspoken as, as someone from a major city. And why do we use them? The human brain, the human brain likes to categorize things to save time. It is easier to say, okay, group A is like this, than to get know 100 different people from that group. The danger is, while stereotypes help our brains process information quickly, they are often inaccurate and unfair. They can lead to prejudice rather, because we judge a person before we even them. And now we're ready to debunk the types of stereotypes in English language used. First on the list, we have the accent and dialect stereotypes. One of the most common forms of linguistic stereotyping is the prestige bias, where certain accents are unfairly associated with intelligence or authority, while others are linked to lower socioeconomic status. These stereotypes involve making snap judgments about a person's background or personal backgrounds of a person's or intelligence based on their phonology or how they sound. And according to Dragojevic et al. Of 2013, which he highlights that how people judge your speech depends entirely on where you are and who you are talking to. In the simplest terms, there is no such thing as a bad accent. There are only accents that people think are better or worse based on social rules. An accent that is considered cool or high class in one city might be considered strange or hard to understand in another. For example, if you speak with a thick Zamboangueño accent in Zamboanga, you are seen as a local and a peer. However, if you use that same accent in a corporate office in Manila, some people might unfairly stereotype you as provincial. The accent did not change, but the location did. So that is how the accent and dialect stereotypes viewed. Here in the Philippines, English is more than just a medium of instruction. It is a significant social marker. Because of its history as a co-official language, several distinct stereotypes have emerged based on how, where, and with what accent it is spoken. Here are the three major categories of linguistic stereotypes in the Philippines context. First, we have the social-economic and class stereotypes, just like what I have discussed earlier. Socioeconomic and class stereotypes are assumptions made about people based on their income, occupation, or social standing. In English language use, this often means judging someone's intelligence or character based on whether they sound rich or poor, where English proficiency is often unfairly used as a litmus test for wealth and social standing. So, under these stereotypes, we have the Colegiala or Conyo English. This is a stereotypically associated with students from elite private universities. It involves heavy code switching or Taglish and a specific soft accent. This stereotype is that these speakers are wealthy, perhaps a bit sheltered or maarte, or in English pa, pretentious. We have the second, which is the Yaya or Inday language. So this is a derogatory stereotype used to describe the English of those with less formal education or those whose first language heavily influences their English syntax. It is unfairly characterized as broken or wrong, ignoring that it is often a functional way of communicating across language barriers. Third, we have the intellectual stereotype. There is a common belief that if someone is fluent in English, they are automatically more intelligent or highly educated. This leads to the nosebleed, where a listener jokingly pretends that their nose is bleeding because speakers' English is too deep or too complex. The next stereotype in English language used in Philippine context is the regional and ethno-linguistic stereotypes. So, what about this? Since the Philippines has over 170 languages, the influence of a mother tongue on English, which is the first language interference, often leads to regional stereotyping. So there are three types of regional stereotyping. First, we have the pointy accent, Visayan or Mindanaoan English. These stereotypes were speakers from the Visayas or parts of Mindanao are sometimes stereotyped because of the interchangeable use of I and E or A and U sounds. Example was saying pintel instead of pencil. In the media, this is often used as a comedic trope which reinforces a provincial or Tongdi stereotype. The second, we have the H and P or F confusion. It is a common stereotype exists regarding speakers whose native languages do not have a certain phonemes like or r. For example, someone saying predict instead of perfect is often teased, which can lead to linguistic insecurity in professional and academic settings. Last, we have the Zamboangueño English. Here in Zamboanga City, or some areas here in Zamboanga City, that which having a heavy influence on Chavacano. It is a Spanish phrase scroll which creates a unique cadence. While this is a mark of rich cultural heritage, outsiders sometimes stereotype it as being loud or aggressive simply because of the naturally rhythmic and forceful nature of Chavacano influenced speech. Another stereotypes in English language use is the gendered language stereotypes, which it stem from the biased expectation that men should speak with authority and directness while women should remain polite and collaborative. This often creates a double bind where assertive women are unfairly labeled as aggressive, while men who use softer, consensus building language may be viewed as lacking confidence. In English, gendered stereotypes aren't not just about the words we used, they are about the expectations that society places on us based on our gender. Breaking these stereotypes means judging a person's communication by their effectiveness, not by how well they fit a male or female gender. Next, we have the racial and ethnic profiling in language, which it involves judging a person's intelligence or character based on their dialect or non-standard grammar, such as the African American Vernacular English or the Chavacano influenced English. These varieties are often wrongly dismissed as broken English rather than being recognized as complex, rule governed linguistic systems. So, under this, we have the slang misconception. So, what about this? Many people incorrectly view these dialects as broken English or slang rather than recognizing them as rule governed systematic linguistic varieties with their own complex grammar and syntax. Also, we have the code switching. Because of these stereotypes, many speakers feel forced to code switch, which is altering their natural speech patterns to fit into professional or academic environments to avoid being judged. In the field of academic and professional, there are also stereotypes, which all of us use language as a tool for gatekeeping, where heavy jargon or high English are equated with superior intellect. This creates a hierarchy that devalues plain English or technical shop talk, assuming that those who do not use complex academic vocabulary are less capable of deep or critical thought. Stereotypes in English language use function as mental shortcuts that link specific linguistic patterns, such as accents, dialects, or vocabulary choices, to a person's perceived intelligence, social status, or character. These biases often create a linguistic hierarchy where Standard English is unfairly treated as the only marker of professional competence or authority, while regional accents or ethnic dialects are wrongly dismissed as uneducated. Whether it involves gendered expectations of how men and women should speak or class based judgments of socioeconomic standing, these stereotypes act as social gatekeepers. Ultimately, linguistic stereotyping ignores the reality that language is a flexible tool for identity and connection, often leading to discrimination in classrooms, workplaces, and daily social interactions. So that is of my part of the stereotypes in English language use. And now let's proceed to the next topic.
Everyone, I am Francis J. Emperado. Today, I'll be discussing about gender-inclusive language guidelines based on the United Nations. This topic is important because the words we use in everyday communication can either include people or unintentionally exclude them. So in this presentation, we will learn how to use language that is more respectful and inclusive. First, gender inclusive language. Gender inclusive language means using words that respect all genders and avoid bias. For example, instead of saying each student must bring his notebook, we say each student must bring their notebook. This is important because when we use the word his, it sounds like we are only talking about the male student. But when we use their, we include everyone, regardless of gender. So, gender inclusive language help us make sure that no one feels left out just because of the words we use. So, importance of gender inclusive language. Gender inclusive language is important because it promotes respect, equality, and inclusion. For example, saying anyone can be a leader is inclusive, while saying only men can be leaders is limiting and unfair. The first sentence shows that leadership is open to everyone. It encourages an equal opportunity. But the second sentence suggested that the only gender is capable, which creates inequality. So the way we speak can influence how people think and feel. Inclusive language helps us build a more respectful and fair environment. Also, avoid discriminatory language. These guidelines tells us to avoid words that favor one gender or exclude others. For example, instead of saying policeman, we use police officer. The word policeman suggests that only men can have that job. But in reality, both men and women can be police officers. So using gender-neutral terms like police officer makes our language more accurate and inclusive. It reflects real life diversity. We have also here, make gender visible. This means that when gender is important in the message, we should mention all genders clearly. For example, instead of saying the doctor and his patients, we say the doctor and her or his patients. This is important because doctors can be male or female. By including both her and his, we recognize that both genders are represented. So when gender matters, we should make sure that our language reflects um, that fairly. Also, we have here, do not make gender visible when not needed. On the other hand, if gender is not important, we should avoid mentioning it. For example, instead of saying each employee must submit his report, we say each employee must submit their report. In this case, the sentence is about work, not gender. So there is no need to specify male or female. Using their makes the sentence neutral and inclusive, and it avoids unnecessary focus on gender. To summarize, gender inclusive language help us communicate in a way that is respectful, fair, and inclusive to everyone. Even small changes in words like using their instead of his can make a big difference in how people feel. So that's all. Thank you for listening.
A pleasant day, students. I am teacher Hazel, and for today, I will be doing a continuation of the topic called Gender Inclusive Language Guidelines, made by the United Nations, or UN for short. So without further ado, let's begin. For number 6, we have use gender neutral job titles. This means that we should use job titles that apply to all genders. For example, saying chairperson instead of chairman includes everyone. For number 7, use plural forms. This means that using plural forms helps avoid gendered pronouns. For example, instead of saying, a student is late, he must explain. Say, if students are late, they must explain. For number 8, we have avoid gender stereotypes. Do not link abilities or roles to a specific gender. For example, saying people of all genders can be good leaders avoids stereotyping like men are better leaders compared to women. Number 9, we have daily communication. This means that gender inclusive language should be used in school, work, and daily conversations. For example, instead of boys should carry the chairs, say students should carry the chairs. To conclude, gender inclusive language helps create fair, respectful, and inclusive communication. Small changes like using they instead of he or she can make everyone feel included. That will be all, and thank you for listening.
Hello, good day everyone. My name is Ben Harbasa from BSET English 2A, and yet we are here to discuss another topic. Without further ado, let's start. Communication is the heart of teaching, and one of the most powerful tools a teacher possesses is not just knowledge, but the way that knowledge is delivered. This brings us to our topic today, which is teacher talk. So, what is teacher talk? Teacher talk is a distinctive language pattern and communication style educators use when interacting with students in classrooms. Beyond mere instruction, it encompasses all verbal communication, like teachers use to manage activities, deliver content, build relationships, and also facilitate learning. Okay. Teacher talk refers to the way educators use language when interacting with students. This includes everything from giving instructions, explaining lessons, like asking questions, and even providing feedback. It is more than just like speaking. Like it is a strategic and purposeful way of communicating to support your learning. Now that we understand what teacher talk is, let us take a closer look at its key characteristics. Unlike everyday conversation, teacher talk often features simplified language with clearer pronunciation, slower pacing, and deliberate repetition to enhance student comprehension. So what does it mean? It typically follows recognizable patterns such as question-answer consequences, formulations of student responses, and evaluative feedback. In many classrooms, teachers dominate verbal space, speaking for 70 to 80% of instruction time, a ratio that many modern educators strive to balance. With these characteristics in mind, let us now examine how teacher talk affects students and the learning process. So, for its impact, teacher talk plays a major role in shaping classroom interaction and student outcomes. First, when teachers talk too much, students may become more passive learners. So, this is observable in common classroom. Second, when teachers give students more opportunities to speak, engagement increases. So when you are giving opportunities for your students to speak, so you are increasing the students or your students' engagement to speak. Okay, third, teacher language also models vocabulary, thinking skills, and communication styles. So in this part, so you are enhancing their vocabulary, their metacognitive skills, and also how they communicate to each other. So, understanding its impact leads us to an important question. How can teacher talk be used effectively? So, okay, and now let's talk its effectiveness. Research suggests several approaches for enhancing teacher talk effectiveness. One of these is to educators can aim to limit their speaking to approximately 50% of class time. Second, incorporate open-ended questions that stimulate critical thinking. Third, to implement 3 to 5 second wait times after questions to encourage students' thoughtful responses. And fourth, strategies like think, pair, and share, student-led discussions, and valuable conversation patterns where students respond directly to each other significantly increase engagement. Okay. By consciously balancing clear instruction with abundant opportunities for student expression, teachers create more dynamic participatory learning environment. In conclusion, teacher talk is not just about speaking. It is about how teachers communicate to inspire learning. It shapes how students understand lessons, how they participate, and even how they think. While teachers play an important role in guiding discussions, effective teaching requires balance, giving students the space to express, explore, and engage. That will be.
Hi everyone, moving on. I am Kenneth A. Gonzalez, and today I'll be discussing the classroom communication. While we often think of communication as just talking, in an educational context, it is the fundamental bridge that connects a student's current knowledge to the new information. A key reference for this is Michael Long Interaction Hypothesis, 1996. Long argues that classroom communication is most effective when students and teachers engage in the negotiation of meaning. This happens when a speaker and listener work together to ensure they understand one another, using things like clarification requests or repeating a point in a simpler way. It's not just a one-way street. It's a dynamic cycle that makes input comprehensible and helps students learn faster. Furthermore, we can look at Lev Vygotsky's sociocultural theory. He believed that learning is inherently social. In our classrooms, communication acts as a form of scaffolding. Through dialogue, a teacher or even a peer can provide the support a student needs to solve a problem they couldn't handle alone. This turns the classroom into a community where the language we use isn't just a subject. It's the actual tool we use to build understanding. So, in short, classroom communication is more than just a transfer of facts. It is a collaborative process of negotiation and support. When we communicate effectively, we aren't just teaching a lesson. We are building a social environment where learning can happen naturally.
That will be all for my discussion. Thank you.